If Islam becomes the welterweight world champion, for sure I'm gonna push for that shot also, and I will move to the welterweight division. I want to fight against Islam, which I would love to do it, no problem. Like, this is competition, you know. I'm not gonna lose my life inside that octagon. So I'm
in the world of combat sports. There are champions, there are legends, and then there are the pound-for-pound kings. For months, one name sat undisputed at the top, Islam Makhachev. But after a shocking turn of events, the official rankings have been overturned. A new #1 has been crowned, and in doing so, has ignited the fuse for what could be the most personal and high-stakes super fight the UFC has seen in years. This isn't just about a title anymore. This is about legacy, disrespect, and the question of who is truly the best fighter on the planet.
Ilia versus Islam now needs to happen, but if Islam beats JDM, Islam versus Ilia at 170 is fucking insane. Ilia is probably considered one of the greatest of all time.
The moment Ilia Topuria's hand was raised in the center of the octagon at UFC 298, the featherweight division was put on notice. But Topuria wasn't interested in his new division. He was looking higher. With the world watching, the newly crowned undefeated champion took the microphone and laid down a challenge that was as audacious as it was electrifying. He wasn't calling out a top contender or a former champion. He was targeting the man at the very top of the mountain, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev. His words, now reported by every major sports outlet from ESPN to MMA Junkie, were direct and laced with bravado. Islam Makhachev, if you still have some balls, I'll be waiting for you in Spain. This was no ordinary post-fight call-out. It was a calculated declaration of war from a fighter who saw his new belt not as a final destination, but as a launch pad.
I will beat him and get the third title. That will be the best scenario for me.
News reports from the post-fight press conference detailed how Topuria doubled down on his ambition. He dismissed the entire featherweight contender list, stating he had already cleared the whole division and saw no one left to challenge him. His focus was singular, a super fight with Makhachev. On his terms, in his country, he was effectively telling the UFC and Makhachev that the power had shifted. The new king wanted to bring the biggest fight possible to Spain, creating a landmark event that would cement his status as a global superstar. This wasn't just about confidence, it was a power play, a signal that he believed his undefeated record and explosive knockout power made him the new center of the UFC universe. The gauntlet had been thrown down not just at a champion, but at the sport's pound-for-pound best. Just when the world was processing a potential super fight at lightweight, Ilia Topuria added another layer of complexity. In multiple interviews, reported by sources like MMA Fighting and Bloody Elbow, he clarified his position. He wasn't just willing to move up, he preferred the fight to happen at 170 pounds, the welterweight division.
I'm the best fighter in the world, so I know that I can do with him whatever I want to do.
This initially seemed strange. Why skip an entire weight class where Makhachev was the reigning king? According to Topuria, the answer is simple and profoundly ambitious. He doesn't just want to be a 2-division champion. His goal is to make history as a 3-division champion. A victory over Makhachev at lightweight would only give him a second belt, but a victory at welterweight, he argues, would be a monumental achievement, placing him in a pantheon of his own. But here is where the story takes a fascinating turn, backed by years of reporting. Islam Makhachev has his own well-documented ambitions at welterweight. Long before Topuria was champion, Makhachev and his camp publicly stated their goal was to conquer the 170-pound division to secure a second title. This fact completely changes the dynamic. Makhachev isn't moving up because of Topuria's challenge. He's pursuing his own legacy. However, Topuria has masterfully weaponized this information. He's publicly framed Makhachev's long-standing goal as a convenient excuse, a way to run away from a direct confrontation. He's creating a narrative that Makhachev is avoiding him, forcing Islam into a strategic corner. Now, if Makhachev proceeds with his welterweight plans, Topuria can claim he was right. It's a brilliant move that puts all the pressure on Makhachev, questioning his motives, while simultaneously paving the way for the exact historic fight Topuria wants, The game is no longer just about who is the better fighter, but who is the master strategist. While Topuria was creating a media storm with his bold proclamations, the target of his callouts, Islam Makhachev, presented a starkly different image. Instead of engaging in a war of words, Makhachev projected an aura of quiet, unshakable confidence. As reported by numerous outlets during the lead-up to his recent title defenses, when asked about Topuria, Makhachev's response was consistently dismissive. He wasn't angry or rattled. He was indifferent. In interviews, he has repeatedly stated that Topuria is too small and needs to prove himself first before daring to call his name.
Was there a weight cut to lightweight that stands out as the most challenging one?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we will see.
Yeah.
If something interesting coming to me, we will see.
This wasn't just his opinion. It was a strategy echoed by his entire camp, including his mentor, Khabib Nurmagomedov. They have made their position crystal clear. Topuria must first defend his featherweight belt against legitimate contenders in his own division. This approach paints a picture of a champion who believes he is operating on a different level. Makhachev sees Topuria's challenges not as a legitimate threat, but as the predictable noise a new title holder makes to gain clout. His focus, as widely documented, remained entirely on the opponent in front of him, whether it was Dustin Poirier or another top contender. He refused to give Topuria the satisfaction of a reaction, treating the callouts as a minor distraction. This quiet confidence is in its own way more intimidating than any verbal threat. It sends a clear message.
Ilia Topuria is a real-life star, man. He really is. And I think that we're going to be watching this kid for a real long time. As long as he stays the course, he seems to be doing all the right things. As long as he stays the course, I believe he's going to be very viable and in the championship picture as the champion at 155 for a long time. I think Islam can fight him. But I think Islam will be one of the greatest challenges he would have because they're both just next level. But right now, man, he seems to be separating himself from everybody.
Makhachev doesn't believe Topuria has earned the right to be in the same conversation yet. He is the established king, secure on his throne, and he will not be rushed or provoked. The fight may happen one day, but it will be on his schedule and his terms, not a moment sooner.
The tension between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev didn't just appear overnight. To understand the true depth of this rivalry, you have to look back at the comments made long before Topuria ever held a UFC title. The seeds of disrespect were planted months, even years in advance. As reported by several MMA media outlets, Topuria was publicly criticizing Makhachev's career choices long before it was fashionable. He labeled the Dagestani champion a hypocrite for planning a move to welterweight, accusing him of ducking fresh challenges in his own division. This was a bold move from a contender, openly questioning the integrity of the pound-for-pound king and suggesting that his ambitions were a front for avoiding tough fights. It showed that Topuria's challenge wasn't an impulse, it was the final step in a long and calculated campaign. But the disrespect soon escalated from professional criticism to personal insult. In a now infamous interview that made waves across the MMA world, Topuria delivered a line that was aimed directly at Makhachev's status as a star. He controversially stated that a fight against the charismatic but lower-ranked Paddy Pimblett, a fighter Topuria has his own heated history with, would be much more exciting for the public than a fight with Islam. This wasn't just a critique of his fighting style, it was a direct shot at Makhachev's entertainment value and his connection with the fans. Topuria was essentially saying that the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world is boring. By doing this, he wasn't just building a case for a fight, he was attempting to undermine Makhachev's entire image, turning a potential super fight into a narrative of the exciting new star versus the dull, dominant champion. When a potential fight captures the imagination of the entire sport, everyone has an opinion, from the fighters in the locker room to the legends on commentary. The proposed clash between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev is no different, and the verdict from the sport's most respected voices has been deafening. Daniel Cormier, a Hall of Famer and one of the few to ever hold 2 UFC titles simultaneously, has been unequivocal in his praise for Topuria. On his popular ESPN show, Cormier has repeatedly called him a real-life star, emphasizing that Topuria's dangerous, multifaceted skill set makes him a legitimate threat to anyone, even at a higher weight class. He sees Topuria not just as a champion, but as a dominant force for years to come. This sentiment is echoed by other UFC legends. Michael Bisping, another former champion, described the potential bout as an inevitable collision course for true pound-for-pound supremacy. But perhaps the most telling endorsements come from Makhachev's own camp and from the new generation of stars. Khabib Nurmagomedov, while insisting Topuria must first defend his title, has never denied his talent. Meanwhile, current bantamweight king Sean O'Malley has stated on his podcast that this is simply the biggest fight the UFC can make. Even UFC President Dana White, who typically avoids hypotheticals, has publicly called Topuria an absolute star and confirmed the company's desire to build a historic event around him in Spain. The consensus is clear. This isn't just a fantasy matchup created by fans online. It's a fight that the most powerful and knowledgeable people in the sport recognize as a legitimate, legacy-defining super fight. When you strip away the war of words, the strategic maneuvering, and the personal insults, what remains is the purest form of athletic competition. A potential fight between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev is more than a title fight. It's a battle for the undisputed throne of the sport. Every credible analyst and sports journalist agrees on this point. The winner would have an undeniable claim as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. For years, Makhachev held that spot, with a dominant winning streak that saw him dismantle nearly every opponent. Then came Ilia Topuria, an undefeated force of nature with a perfect record, who not only captured a world title, but immediately laid claim to that same pound-for-pound crown. This creates a collision course that can only be resolved inside the octagon. It's a rare legacy-defining fight where two elite champions, both in the absolute prime of their careers, would put their dominance on the line. The matchup itself is a fascinating clash of modern MMA styles at the highest level. On one side, you have Ilia Topuria, a master boxer with devastating knockout power in his hands, whose pressure and technical striking have overwhelmed every opponent. Yet, as analysts consistently point out, he is just as dangerous on the ground, with a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a series of submission victories. On the other side is Islam Makhachev, the embodiment of Dagestani wrestling, whose suffocating top control and systematic grappling are considered the best in the sport. But to label him a mere grappler would be a mistake, as his striking has evolved to become a lethal weapon, proven by his own highlight reel knockouts. It's a fight with no clear weaknesses on either side, a high-stakes chess match where a single mistake on the feet or on the ground would lead to a definitive finish. This is what a battle for pound supremacy is supposed to look like. So, the stage is set for a conflict that will define the modern era of the UFC. It's a story driven by more than just competition. It's fueled by raw ambition, calculated disrespect, and a clash of two fundamentally different philosophies. On one side stands Islam Makhachev, the quiet king who lets his dominant victory speak for himself, a champion secure in his legacy. On the other, Ilia Topuria, the undefeated, outspoken star who has masterfully engineered a moment in time where he can challenge the best and change the landscape of the sport forever. This is not just a fight for a title or a ranking, it's a battle for the future of the UFC, a fight for pound supremacy, and a personal war for respect. The pieces are in motion, and the call-outs have been made. Legends and experts agree that this is the fight to make. All that remains is for the two best fighters in the world to finally step into the octagon and settle the question once and for all. Will the quiet dominance of the established king continue its reign, or will the fiery ambition of the new star prove to be an unstoppable force? The answer will not only crown the true pound-for-pound best, but will also create a legacy that will be remembered for generations. The only question left is whose legacy will it be?